Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the programme this evening, a war of words breaks out after senior Congress leader Prithviraj Chavan says that India lost day one of Operation Sindhoor. Operation Sindhoor was the 88-hour mini-war between India and Pakistan in May this year. Chavan said on day one, India were completely defeated, whether people accept it or not. The Air Force was completely grounded and not a single aircraft flew. Now, the BJP is hit out at the remarks, but Chavan says that he sticks by what he says and that he will address the media to explain his remarks. On the show tonight, a cool, calm, hopefully, fact check of what the senior Congress leader has said. Did India really lose day one of Operation Sindhoor? Is this Mr. Chavan's personal theory, or is this a fact about Operation Sindhoor? Now, we did try and invite him to the program. He was unable to make it today. However, let's listen in to some of the reactions that have been coming in to those remarks.
मोदींनी काय मान्य केलं? पहिल्या दिवशी आपला संपूर्ण पराभव झाला. 7 तारखेला जे हवाई युद्ध अर्ध्या तासात झालं त्यामध्ये आपला टोटल पराभव झाला. हे कोणी मान्य करो अगर न करो, भारताची जी सैन्यामध्ये जी सुपेरियरिटी होती, आपल्याकडे जवळजवळ 12-15 लाखाचं स्टँडिंग आर्मी आहे, पाकिस्तानकडे 5-7 लाखाची. आपण खूप स्ट्रॉंग होतो त्या मानाने, पण ते सगळे संपले कारण त्याला युद्धच होणार नाही. त्यामुळे तुमच्याकडे 12 लाख सैन्य आहे का 25 लाख सैन्य आहे का 1 कोटी सैन्याला काय अर्थ राहिला नाही, कारण युद्धच होणार नाही, कोणी करूनच देणार नाही तुम्हाला. ते आत्ता आपण ऑपरेशन सिंदूरमध्ये पाहिलं की मिलिटरीची 1 किलोमीटर सुद्धा कुठं हालचाल झाली नाही. ते 2-3 दिवस झालं ते फक्त हवाई युद्ध झालं, मिसाईल युद्ध झालं. आता पुढची युद्ध तशीच होणार आहेत. मग आपल्याला 12 लाख आर्मी ठेवायची काय गरज आहे का? मग त्यांच्याकडे दुसरं काहीतरी काम करून घेऊ आपण.
बिल्कुल सवाल नहीं उठता.
हाँ जी सर,
नहीं सवाल नहीं उठता.
सवाल
मैं बात करूंगा ना डिटेल में.
माफी मांगने का सवाल
माफी का मैं
लेकिन आपके हिसाब से स्टेटमेंट गलत था क्या सर?
बिल्कुल
लोग मीडिया में वही सब जगह ऐसे ही चला कि अपमान हुआ है.
मैं करूंगा, डिटेल बात करूंगा जी. आई विल टॉक टू मीडिया प्रॉपर्ली.
सो आर यू अपोलोजाइजिंग राइट नाउ?
अरे आउट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन.
जो पृथ्वीराज चौहान जी ने बोला है, ये कोई गलत बात उन्होंने नहीं बोली है. उन्होंने जो एक हमारे बारे में विश्व में जो बोला जाता है वही चीज उन्होंने एक बार फिर से रखी है. जो उन्होंने कहा उसी प्रकार से अमेरिका का भी वही बयान था. इंटरनेशनल मीडिया ने लगभग वही उसी प्रकार से चीज़ों को उन्होंने छापा है. और इतना ही नहीं, तो जो राफेल कंपनी उसने भी हमारे जहाज वहाँ भारत को दिए हुए जो है वो गिरे थे, ये भी उन्होंने भी अपने प्रेस रिलीज में कहा था. तो ये तमाम जो लोगों का कहना है उस पर क्या स्थिति है, इस पर नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने बयान करना चाहिए.
ये भारत की हार बोलने वाले ये पाकिस्तान की जीत चाहते हैं क्या? पाकिस्तान की बोली बोलते हैं, भारत के खिलाफ बात करते हैं. ये काय के भारतीय है, ये काय की देशभक्ति है, ये काय की राष्ट्रभक्ति है? ये तो देशद्रोह है, ये देश से गद्दारी है, देश से बेईमानी है. और इसलिए ऐसे वक्तव्य करने वालों का मैं जाहिर निषेध करता हूँ.
देखिए, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर जिस तरह से शुरू किया और जिस तरह से रोका गया वो एक रहस्य है. हमारी फौज, राजनाथ सिंह बोल रहे थे अब कराची तक जा रही है, इस्लामाबाद जीत रहे हैं. तो अचानक ऐसा क्या हो गया कि प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने फ़ोन किया और आपने पूरी ऑपरेशन सिंदूर को रुकवा दिया. ये जनता के साथ धोखा है, देश के साथ धोखा है. ऑपरेशन सिंदूर पूरा नहीं हुआ है, पहलगाम का बदला पूरा नहीं हुआ है.
कौन क्या कह रहा है ये उससे मुझे कुछ लेना देना नहीं. सेना के शौर्य पर किसी को गाली देने का अधिकार नहीं है. जो लोग सेना के शौर्य को अपमानित करते हैं वो कभी देश हित की बात सोच ही नहीं सकते.
All right, well, joining us now, General Atta Hasnain, Tehseen Poonawalla and Charu Pragya of the BJP. We'll be joined by Advocate Nikhil Jain also in a moment from now. Tehseen, let me come to you first. I think it's not so much his remarks on the need to reduce the size of the army, which is a fair debate, which have come into question, but his remarks that on the first day of Operation Sindhoor, we were completely defeated. How was India defeated on the first day of Operation Sindhoor?
Vishnu, good evening.
Good
Thank you
evening.
so much for having me on the show. Good evening to my fellow panelists. General Saab, thank you so much for your services to our nation. We remain indebted to you. And good evening to the NDTV viewers. I met Prithviraj Chavan yesterday over at a lunch, actually. I bumped into him and I sat with him, and he told me that he did this press conference in my city yesterday. I've run away from Delhi for the smog. And he told me, he said this, and I was shocked. Look, Operation Sindhoor, particularly what happened on May 6th, running into May 7th morning, I think in modern Air Force aviation history is the best in the latest history of aviation warfare, is the best sort of example of what our Indian Air Force has achieved.
So he was wrong
Within
in
that,
what he said.
Oh, completely. I completely think that for him to say this, to go on and to repeat it, and to be determined either, and I say this with a lot of respect, he's he needs to get himself checked, because the other person supporting him in this is Sanjay Raut, who we all know what kind of a mindset Sanjay Raut has, or this is done deliberately at a time of elections to help the BJP. And I'm saying this about a Congress leader who's very, very senior, and I vote Congress. I dislike the BJP passionately. Look, what we achieved in Operation Sindhoor is unparalleled on May 6th, May 7th. Without seeding and deeding, what we did, we hit
All
those
right. Okay,
targets
I get your
from
point.
south.
I just want to
I
take
think
that
it's
across to Nikhil also. I'll come back to you because, Nikhil, I'm just trying to understand over here, how did India, on the first day of Operation Sindhoor, how was India completely defeated?
No, what I think Mr. Chavan has said is that India faced losses on the first day of Operation Sindhoor, and we all know that there was a rejig in the strategy of the government and the forces, and that is what led to the decisive victory that our forces got us. And this is not just Prithviraj Chavan saying that; this is exactly the same thing that CDS Anil Chauhan had said on the 31st of May 2025. India established decisive advantage after losses in the air on the first day of Operation Sindhoor. Vishnu, you might also remember the statement given during a presentation by Captain Shiv Kumar, the defense attaché in the Indian embassy at Indonesia, where he had explained that on the first day the Air Force was asked not to target military establishments of Pakistan, and that tied the hands of the forces behind their backs, which is why we had to suffer losses. CDS Anil Chauhan also in a later interview said that yes, we did suffer from losses in terms of aircraft equipment, and defense attaché had also made it very clear. So what Mr. Chavan is saying today is not different from what our military leadership has said. And so far as the statement concerning the need to relook at the strength of the army is concerned, again, that is something that our
Let's keep
military
that
leadership
aside for
has
a
been
moment
saying for a
because I
while.
think that's a valid point. Let's keep that aside, and that's a separate debate. I beg to differ, Nikhil, and I'll tell you why. When you wage a war, and this was a war, let's be clear about it, if you're hitting targets 150 kilometers inside Pakistan, it's a war. You have to look at what the
Absolutely.
objectives of that war were. The objectives of that war were to hit Pakistani terrorist targets. This was the stated objective of the war. In 88 hours, on day one, at 1:05 a.m. onwards, on the 7th of May, the Indian Air Force hit Muridke, they hit Bahawalpur, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, and the Lashkar-e-Toiba headquarters, and the Indian Army obliterated 7 other posts. In the process of doing that, they achieved the primary goal of what India sought to do. That being the case, is it not bizarre that anybody say that on the first day we were completely defeated? How were we defeated if we hit those terror camps, which was what our stated objective was?
No, Vishnu, that's what I'm saying. That what Prithviraj Chavan has said is that we suffered losses on the first day, which is a matter of fact, as told by our military leadership. And I agree with you. And Vishnu, I agree with you that it was war. When you breach the international border, go into the territory of another sovereign country and carry out military strikes,
we
that is
didn't
war. There
breach
is no
the.
question about it.
No,
Can I
so
just say something?
that's exactly right.
Tesneem,
So
we crossed
my
the
only
international
submission,
border. Tesneem,
Nikhil,
we crossed the international border, and
We
Vishnu,
didn't.
there lies my problem. There lies my problem. There lies my problem that once you are attacking targets in the sovereign territory of another country, you are at war, and you can't instruct your forces to not target the military establishments of a state which we all know backs these terrorist outfits.
No,
What
but
was the
how
government
do you
thinking
say
that they
that?
will hit targets?
Because Nikhil, my dear friend, you're factually slightly wrong on this. On the 7th of May,
Let me correct what I said.
Let me explain. On the 7th of May, India used an S-400 missile system in Adampur to intercept a Pakistani JF-17 fighter at a range of more than 200 kilometers when the Pakistanis came attacking us with air-to-air missiles relentlessly. That was a military target which was destroyed, as a result of which as a result of which the Pakistan Air Force within minutes moved westwards. Certainly on the 8th of May onwards, the two air forces were not in close or relatively close proximity. So it's not that India didn't use military force, we did.
But not on the first day, and that's exactly the point Captain Shiv Kumar made.
Let me make this perfectly clear, because I've done a lot of work on this, and there'll be more that comes out. On the 7th of May, India struck a Pakistani JF-17 fighter aircraft more than 200 kilometers away. This is not the AWACS aircraft, that happened later on, right? As a result of the strikes which on our aircraft, which the Pakistanis may have been carrying out. Whether it was air-to-air or surface-to-air, we don't know.
Vishnu, I'm actually just going by the statements made by our military leadership and also our foreign minister when he said that we had informed at the start of Operation Sindhoor that we will not be targeting any military establishments.
That was not the goal.
That is the rejig.
But as you know, that's exactly what we did because we had no choice. It went up the escalation.
Right. And that is what the government should have foreseen from day one, that when you are attacking terror camps in Pakistan, a state which has a sponsored policy of supporting these terrorist outfits, obviously their military is going to come into action. Obviously, you will have to engage their military and target their establishments.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me bring in others.
To say that we're not going to target them is probably a lapse in strategy.
Fair enough. Charu, would you like to come in on this? I think Nikhil's point is it not, Nikhil asked the question that is it not strange that we have had a policy whereby we didn't attempt to target the military of Pakistan at a time when we actually went in and hit them very hard?
Vishnu, yes. So, number one, no one in our military leadership said that we were defeated. A word such as defeat was not used. So, Nikhil, please don't claim that your leader is simply quoting what was said by India's military leadership. Absolutely not. You're giving it your own dirty twist to something that India has achieved and achieved impeccably, because we set out to dismantle terror infrastructure. This was not a territorial invasion of any kind. This was simply protecting our people, our land from terrorism, which was perpetrating from enemy soil. That was our objective, and it was controlled, calm, precise. Our army made that extremely clear. Every single statement from our government and leadership made that extremely clear. It was escalated after the Pakistani military and air force decided to respond in return of us striking only and only terror camps. Let's make that very clear. Now, if Prithviraj Chavan is going to give it his own dirty twist, like I said, and talk about defeat, about the Indian army, I cannot think of anything worse. But you know, this is not a Prithviraj Chavan problem. This is a Congress problem, Nikhil's included. It's a Congress problem. Because when Congress leader of opposition, Rahul Gandhi, can so blatantly say, "Hamare jawan pit rahe hain," our soldiers are getting beaten. How demoralizing is that? Okay. Are you talking about your own country, your own soldiers? So instead of being constructive, you're being defeatist in your approach. Ajay Rai is mocking the Indian army. Nimbu Mirchi on a Rafale toy. Tell me, where is the humor or the sarcasm or anything decent in that? It is dirty from the first to the last minute that you discuss it. And it's become a habit.
My submission is over here is that despite all of the claims made on the Rafale, if you actually look at the performance of the Rafale over the course of this conflict, it's done incredibly well, particularly on the last day. I'll come back to you in a moment.
And can I add to that?
No,
please,
Charu, hold on. General Saab is getting very angry with me and upset with me. General Saab,
understandably, sorry, sir.
General Saab, when you go into war and you have objectives which are laid down, and you've been involved in conflict in your career. Do you not accept the fact that there will be losses? I mean, is that not hardwired into your leadership skills?
Vishnu, absolutely. Firstly, whatever I say has no political connotations. Right? I am here to give you a professional judgment. I think it's too early, even 9 months after Sindoor, to look at the nuances. The nuances are not known to the political community, even to the veteran armed forces community. These are well-kept secrets still within the armed forces, and they are perhaps still being analyzed to a great extent. At this stage, to come out and start commentaries and that too giving judgments on the capability and the achievements of the Indian Army and the Indian Armed Forces, I think is an unfair one. What people have to realize, modern warfare is not something in which you start looking at the movement of large formations, etc. It is a far more nuanced thing. One of the major issues in this was the restraint that India was following. You see, it was a calibrated restraint, which we started from the beginning. Otherwise, a response from India to something like Pahalgam could have started with a full mobilization as it happened in the year 2001. But it did not. There was a certain political objective to it. There were certain military objectives which you have just outlined yourself. I think your understanding of this is absolutely spot on. What we were doing was we were following a certain restraint and calibrating beyond. While we were calibrating, there would be certain losses which the Indian Armed Forces have also accepted. That was a part of the overall strategy. And no one passes judgment on the first 24 hours of a conflict. You pass judgment after the 88 hours of the full conflict. That is the better way to look at it.
And it was Pakistan that came on the ceasefire table.
Absolutely.
In the sequence of events. There's another statement over here which has been attributed to Mr. Chavan, which I disagree with, and I'll get your view on this, Tehseen. He said if any aircraft had taken off from Gwalior, Bhatinda or Sirsa, there was a high probability of being shot down by Pakistan, which is why the Air Force was fully grounded. If you take a look at the Gallantry Award citations of all the Veer Chakra winning Indian Air Force officers, they operated in this environment.
Yes.
They came under a great deal of threat. It doesn't spell out which day, but presumably it would have been on day one and the operations there as well. And they fought despite that. These Gallantry Awards don't exactly spell it out in a way that most people understand. But if you read it carefully, you will understand that if any aircraft had taken off from Gwalior, Bhatinda or Sirsa, whichever base that they were taking off from, the Indian Air Force's pilots faced incredible threats. They were locked up by Pakistani aircraft. They still got into position. They fired their weapons and they destroyed the targets. Perhaps there were losses as well. So, where is the question of the Air Force not having been used?
What makes May 6th night, May 7th early morning so incredible is we did it without suppression or destruction of enemy air defense systems. We didn't do that because we wanted to give Pakistan the surprise element, right? So this was an incredible operation on that May 7th early morning twilight. And Pakistan didn't know. All our missiles hit their targets and we achieved what we wanted. For any politician to put it down and to misread what the Army chief said, what the chief of defense services said, is totally being unfair to our brave Air Force. This was mostly Operation Sindhoor, an Air Force led battle, because the Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif also admitted when they begged for ceasefire that we wanted to hit India after Fajr ki namaz, but by then the BrahMos had landed on Noor Kha, etc., which was obviously through our Sukhois, because the
Rafales found out at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. Anyway, carry on.
That's true. And then they couldn't take off. So this was a fabulous victory led by our Air Force. To say our Air Force was grounded when we did the impossible without suppression or destruction of their air defense system. The next day we got Lahore down. And look, if you represent the grand old party, at least read and come. At least be articulate on that. And at least if you're a senior leader like Prithviraj Chavan, don't make statements like this that hurt the people of this country. I can only say this with folded hands. I met him yesterday. I was shocked that he kept saying that with a straight face. And he was adamant. He could have spoken to any expert. One more thing. In a war, I expect some machines will go as long as I had no casualties. And we had no casualties on the night of May 6th, May 7th. General Saab, I leave it for you to correct me, or Vishnu for you to correct me.
There were casualties, but not in terms of the air combat.
Yes, air combat. I'm talking about air combat.
The loss of platforms.
I'm talking about air combat.
A few people over the course. For example, there were people in a school who were targeted in Kashmir, in the Poonch area. There was artillery shelling and there was a loss of life there. Yes.
No, so let me just clarify that. I'm talking about the air combat. I'm not. So we will lose machinery. The planes, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we didn't lose any of our Air Force people. And what we lost in the school, etc., is what Pakistan did. They targeted civilian areas.
Let me just go back to Nikhil.
They left a missile on our Gurudwaras.
Sure. Just to keep the strike rotating, Nikhil, go ahead with your point. Yeah.
So, Vishnu, first of all, we can all choose to agree or disagree with what Mr. Chavan has said, and Tehseen certainly has a disagreement in how Mr. Chavan has put it. I'm simply saying that First of all, it's not a video in English, so I don't know whether he actually used the word defeat or losses. The way I'm looking at it, he's talking about losses, which serious Anil Chauhan has said. If he's actually used the word defeat, then yes, I don't agree with that word, because you can't be defeated in a war that is ongoing. At the end of the day, our forces did a spectacular job. Nobody's ever questioned that. All that's been ever questioned is the strategy of the government at the start of the operation and the subsequent strategy of the government when it comes to taking the taking it forward diplomatically. Also, Charu raised an important point about how certain Congress leaders were saying certain things about Rafale jets and this and that. I would like to have a comment on what you would like to say to the Madhya Pradesh minister Vijay Shah, who said Colonel Sofia Qureshi आतंकवादियों की बहन है, she's a sister of terrorists, or the Deputy Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, who says that the army bows down to the feet of Narendra Modi. And let me remind, I'm not sure about the status of the Deputy Chief Minister.
Okay,
but
I'll allow that question,
I
Nikhil,
can
but
come
it's
to
not
that, yeah.
really linked to Op Sindoor per se. But please, but since you've raised it, let her reply briefly. Charuji.
Yes, I'm replying. One, I do not endorse any statement by any leader across party lines, and I've made that amply clear time and time again. Nikhil knows that, obviously. And you're talking about the strategy of the Indian government. The strategy of the Indian government has been very, very, very clear since Prime Minister Modi has taken office. Very clear, because there is going to be a Balakot, there is going to be surgical strikes, there is going to be Operation Sindhoor. This is not the time of UPA that letters were written and a press conference was taken and operations were leaked for your personal applause and to satisfy your egos. That is what you did during your time. You wrote a letter, we sent missiles, Nikhil. Do not forget that. And those missiles were sent precisely and they targeted precisely. And after Operation Sindhoor was over, people on your side of the political spectrum, on your side, went across the world talking about the operation. So tell me, what is it that is wrong with some of your opposition leaders right here in India, starting with the leader of opposition? I have called him leader of Pakistan time and time again because it is his statement.
Okay, all right.
Which trend on Pakistan
Okay. Both of you
television.
hold on. General Saab,
So-
last word to you. I promise you, General Saab, 30 seconds. Go ahead, sir. That's all you have time.
I would just advise the political community, either side, please understand the nuances of war fighting of today, right? These are not the periods where you make grandiose announcements here and there. You keep it nuanced. You have your political aims. You have your military aims. And as stated by Vishnu, both the political and the military aims were achieved, I think, to a great extent, almost 100%, I would say. Losses will always be there in war. You have to have the courage to admit it. I think our CDS admitted it. You don't have to quantify it. You don't have to go public in quantifying it. As long as you're admitting it that there have been losses and we have made up those losses and immediately had a re-strategization to ensure
just to interrupt you because I'm running out of time. India quantifies the loss of life. We always have. That has been a policy. We do not necessarily need to quantify the loss of equipment. We don't want to be telling Pakistan that we've lost 1 or 100 planes. It doesn't work in conflict like that. It gives them a tactical advantage. This is what has been said over and over again by the Air Force. But we're out of time on this program. I suspect there'll be a lot more over a period of time which comes out on the actual details of the fighting of Op Sindoor. Perhaps there's a need for more information in that regard. We'll have to wait and see. For the moment, from all of us here, good night.